Hello, everybody. I just wanted to have a quick second to let you guys know how much it means to me that you are my sponsor. SRP Studios, The Real Hernando, The Rhythm Section, Hardwick, Heating, Cooling, and Air Quality, Estes, Grading, Hodge Homes, Adair, Honey Farm, Miss Hippie Eats, Phones R Us, Ross, Sod Farms and Landscaping, Ivy Rain, Women's Clinic, Tonic POS by Tyler Young, and Coffee Central. Thank you guys so much for being a sponsor. If you'd like to be a sponsor, go to my website now, motivatecoachcamp.com, and click on the button. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and guess where we are? We're down here in these incredible studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. All right, folks, you guys tuned in last week. You guys saw that I have kicked off another series. I don't always do series. I will do a lot of individual stories, but ever so often I will come across a couple of just impromptu moments, things that are moments of inspiration. And the light bulb goes on and it says, hey, look, this would be something really good to highlight. That happened a few weeks back. And I had come across a young lady that was, to me, very inspirational because I think it's easy to get caught up in our times and start to feel like that maybe the future looks grim for the next generation coming up. But people that do that so often really don't see the big picture. They may only see a couple of stories here and there. Let's just be honest. Social media is a poison in a lot of ways. It can be a positive thing. That's what I try to put out. But there are also plenty of negative stories. And if you just focus on those things, then you start to feel like that's the whole world around you. And I got to be honest with you, it's just not true. As you know, I am a teacher. I'm a professor at the college. The majority of my students are in that Gen Z generation. Gen Z being 1997 to 2012, so roughly 12 years old to 27 years old. I did the research on that. It's not like a walk around knowing what all the generations are. But when I came across this young lady, she kind of gave me some thoughts, some inspiration. I ran into another person, then I have another person. I'm like, we're putting together a series. We're doing Gen Z. So my guest this week, I ran into her at the Baker's Corner, which is a local coffee shop. Started as simple as a small conversation like I do. If you know me, I don't know a stranger. I just talk to everybody. She was very witty and intuitive and wise. And I was like, well, where did all this come from? Well, we started talking a little more. The next thing you know, I asked her if she'd come on the show. And she's here today. So without further ado, Miss Maddie Igleheart, how are you doing, young lady?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Excited to answer questions and talk.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. As you mentioned in our pre-talk, you've been on some podcasts before.
Yeah, I had done some previously when I was like 16. Just a group of my friends and our youth pastor. We would just sit down and talk about real life, and our youth students would listen and understand that we may be your leaders, but we are experiencing some of the exact same things.
Yeah, that's hey, look, that's very insightful. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I am on the board of directors with the Hope Center, which is a youth mentorship program. And one of the things we do is we'll have these conferences and the kids come in and we'll have the mayor from the city and the sheriff maybe, and a couple of other city leaders, and then some other prominent people, maybe they're teachers or whatever. And I usually MC the event. I'll talk to the kids. And at the end, we always bring the kids up as a panel to ask them questions, and then they can ask us questions, because the bottom line is we got to have a voice in all directions. You're absolutely right. You're saying that you guys are experiencing some of the same things they're experiencing, and that being able to connect those dots, give people strength, they give people hope. That's a part of community. And I think that, my friend, is what intrigued me so much about you when we started talking. We didn't know each other from anybody. Mm-mm. First time we met, I'm getting a cup of coffee, and you started talking, and I'm like, wow. That you had some really amazing stuff. And so I wanted you to come in, and we're going to cover some of those things, obviously, and then deeper, the areas that I feel like you really can tap into what maybe young people are going through, and explain some stuff to others that are maybe of an older generation or even a younger generation. But let's start with this. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Eudora, Mississippi, middle of nowhere. There's a gas station and a Dollar General. That's it.
The gas station's at 301 and 304.
Yeah, exactly.
My very first EMS paid job was Eudora Fire Department.
Yeah, I hear interesting stories. So.
Yeah, it's a very small town for sure.
It is.
So growing up out there, do you have brothers, sisters?
I have one brother, but my parents did work in a foster care home for a really long time out there. So I grew up with one blood brother, but 11 foster /
Wow.
Yeah, it was never a dull moment. It was very interesting. You learn to adapt really quickly when you have 10 people running around you all the time. You know, you learn to be a cook, a tutor, a laundromat person. Like, you just help out where you can.
Yeah. So how old were you when they first started having foster kids?
I was 6 to 16, 7 to 16, something like that. The very first time we ever went over to the houses and met everyone. And, so it wasn't like your normal foster situation where kids come to your house.
Yeah.
All these kids lived together and we came to their house.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Look, I got to be honest with you. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. It's called Palmer Home for Children.
Palmer Home, Miss Annabelle.
Yeah.
She has been on my show.
Yes.
I just didn't realize. I always guess I thought that even through them, the kids were placed in a place.
No, so all the kids are brought to Palmer Home, and house parents are interviewed, background, and they're brought to that house. Kind of gives these kids more of a stability setting. They already just moved from one place. Foster care can moving. They wanted these kids to have a community where there's a people who are like them and who understand what they're going through, and still not having to move from house to house, and still having a brother, sister, mom, a routine.
Seeing what a family unit could look like. Yeah. And to be fair with that, if you've not had any experience with fostering or foster kids, look, my aunt and uncle, they fostered children for probably 30 plus years, but they brought kids into their home and they would keep them for a period of time until they got placed in permanent homes or what have you. But there's so much need for structure. And when you're young and impressionable and you've never seen what that could look like, a mom and a dad and people working together and managing through problems and having someone that you could bounce ideas off of, you grow up and you don't know any different. We end up a lot of times, I know I'm generalizing, but we do become products of what we know,
exactly.
Right? I can tell you a lot of times I've done something, and if I thought about it, I did it because that's the way my mom and dad did it. It wasn't that anybody told me to do it X, Y, Z, but it was just the way I did things because
routine.
That's what I knew, right? And that's true. So how did that help you grow as a young person, being around essentially a stranger in a way, but a person that you could develop a friendship with?
It opened my eyes. First off, I was, like I said, 6 or 7. I realized really quickly the world is not rainbows. I didn't live under this, mask of this world that everything's perfect, because a lot of kids grow up at 6, 7, 8, in this household where, they only have their family and their parents and they're only around these certain amount of people. Well, I was doors opening with this new kid coming in, had this story of just brokenness in her, and my parents would explain, like, Maddie, God has put them in our life to love them and to love on them. So it made me realize really quickly that, this life is, I'm here to love others because as Christ loves me. So I was like, I want to be able to open this door and love on these kids. And, it wasn't always easy. I mean, 12 siblings. I was 7, 8, 9, growing up, sharing my parents with 11 other people.
That's not easy.
It's not easy. So it made me really, I guess, dependent in who I am, and realizing that, I can do anything that I set my mind to, and I can help and choose to help whoever I want. And so growing up with a bunch of sisters, how it worked was, when I was a younger girl, I had all older brothers. And so it caught me this whole mindset of how, oh my Lantas, a boy's brain works. That will always...
Girl, I can't explain that.
No, I still can't. But it was just really, really fun in seeing, how these people lived and how whatever their day-to-day life was. And I was 6 and 7 with, 18-year-old brothers who were all I just felt like there's princess with a bunch of gigantic guys who were all on the football team all doing this.
Yeah.
And then as I grew older, I ended up getting a lot of younger brothers with sisters my age. So I didn't just have the one and then I was just an only girl. No. Then I lived with 5 other girls. That teaches you patience beyond all things.
I could only imagine.
And then 5 younger brothers. So it was so many times did I pull out my phone and be like, I'm calling dad, when really I wasn't calling dad. I even used the I'm calling Santa Claus one time when it was close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gotta use what you got, girl.
I was equipped to it really quickly, but it was a really fun, it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be flexible. It taught me how to roll with a plan, but also have a loose plan, because you never really know. 10 kids in a car, one of them might get sick and you got to clean it up. So it just taught me how to be me in a world of a bunch of different people too.
So this actually does start to play into, and by the way, for those that don't know out there, I had no idea about this part. I get a little brief background on a person, and then I just like to have a general conversation, and I have questions that'll lead us in a certain direction. But I didn't realize that you guys were a part of a foster program, and then the Palmer Home, of course. Now that you said that, I do remember her discussing how they have the family unit thing where people will come up there, be a part of these kids' lives. And this is fascinating because with the other guest that came on last week, in retrospect of how we do this, so you'll be the second, obviously, in the series that we're doing, and that was part of her thing, was that she mentioned all of these little areas of her life growing up that help lay layers of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I am not saying a person is incapable of building perspective as they get older, but I am going to say that we're a lot more impressionable when we're younger.
Exactly.
And so exposure to things can open your eyes to stuff at such an early age. You go into your early adulthood and then mid-adulthood, and you have a completely different view than somebody next to you, and it's not a knock on them.
Mm-mm.
It's just a lack of experiences.
I say it like this. I say, there's two different kinds of testimonies in this world. There's a testimony of someone who's gone through the hardships and the hard times and have learned from those hard times and have been with Christ. And then I have this friend in Eastern Tennessee where I lived. His name is Fisher. He has had a testimony with Christ his whole life. It is so beautiful. He said he was 8 years old sitting there and he asked the Lord to come into his heart. And he has just been in relationship with him ever since. And he wants to be a pastor. And I'm so proud of him. And I said, and with all of my friends, I was like, it's crazy because people knock those testimonies. They don't think that they're powerful. And I was like, do you know how powerful it is at 8 years old to know that you have Christ with you? Like, you understand that.
Yeah.
And I was like, and you've grown with that wisdom. I was like, you are one of the wisest people I've ever met. It's because of Christ. And I was like, so don't think because my story is any different than yours, I might have had a little more rough on my edges. I was like, it's so beautiful to see grace in a world that has none.
Yeah.
I was like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So like the testimonies and just our stories, there's no difference. I was like, I might have had a rougher path, but we both ended up in Christ. I was like, so it doesn't matter how you got there.
Absolutely. No, you're right. There are different ways to get to the same goal. I always talk about a lot of times your path may have to change, but the goal can stay the same. And ultimately what you're talking about, of course, being the life perspective of things. But a person that's not experienced certain things, maybe they don't understand until they're enlightened. You were enlightened early, and you talk about how life's not all a bunch of rainbows. Well, you start to see these other kids that you get to know, and you realize, wow, you do have it good, because sometimes you don't know you have it good, right? Until you're exposed to something where people don't have it good.
I know. I said before anyone turns 18 or at 18, they need to do three things. They need to go see a foreign country. They need to see how these kids are. I've been to Europe. You need to see what kids live in other states. I said, you need to go work with, like a special needs Down syndrome retirement home. I worked with one in Eastern Tennessee, and there was these people who were so happy, and they were just smiling, and they just had the best hearts. And I worked with one personally, and his name was Bob. And he's like, Jesus loves me. And this man couldn't walk by himself. He couldn't drink by himself. Anything that he needed, I had to do. And I was like, if I was in that boat, could I be sitting there being like, Jesus loves me?
Yeah.
Or would I be, oh, poor pity me, Maddie, my life sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so crazy to see. And then I said, people need to spend more time off their phone, away from social media.
Ain't that the truth?
Just sit one-on-one, have a conversation. You learn more sitting down with someone than you'll ever do scrolling on that phone.
Yeah.
And so those are three things that I did. And I was like,
you mentioned some of that when we were at the coffee shop, which is part of what piqued my interest. And I'm like, I probably need to pick your brain a little bit. Yeah. So you guys, this is authentic. This is real. Now, look, you didn't go to a special class and suddenly it just came to you. This was life experience that was built over time. Now, your perspective is perfect. It's right on point, in my opinion. And that is, where's your basis? Where's your foundation? Well, you had a foundation in God. So then building from that does, in fact, keep you at least centered on the most important things.
Exactly.
Now, you had that, and then as a kid, to be able to see these experiences other people were going through, incredible for a person to not just see it, but then understand it. Because I think there were probably plenty of times when I was growing up, I witnessed someone doing without, but it didn't ring a bell that they were doing without. When I look back as I got older, I look back, I'm like, man, that person didn't have this going on. They never got lunch at school because they didn't have the money to get lunch at school. It's those kind of things. You don't think about, here we're in America, kids go hungry. You don't think about that, but it happens. And I say you don't think about it. You don't think about that if it's not happening to you a lot of times.
Exactly. Especially when you're a kid, you're in your own world.
You're in your own world. And then I think that's fair to say, when you become adult, you can still be in your own world.
100%.
Which I think that it's probably evident. You look at social media, you see these opinions as you scroll through, and these people that are so matter-of-factly factual about something that you can tell they have a very limited spectrum toward, and that could be anything. And I'm not saying I haven't been guilty of it, but what happens is as you get older and you have more experiences, you start to see, hey, maybe I should have some grace here. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should try to understand. There's the adage that says, don't judge a man till you've walked a mile in their shoes, something to that effect. I think there's so much truth there. I can think back to before I became a paramedic. I'm just sharing some stuff here because it's co-relating. Before I became a paramedic in Memphis, now I was a paramedic in Mississippi, and I had been in the military. I had traveled overseas. I had been in Europe. I had been in the Middle East. I had seen a few things, okay? So it wasn't like I was in a bubble and I thought the world was glowy, but I hadn't been in the low-income, poverty-stricken parts of Memphis. I didn't realize until I came home and got on the Memphis Fire Department. And I'm going into parts of town that look like a third world country.
Yeah, I realized that because when I was younger, my dad worked with Mike Gooseby. He had a school bus full of clothes, and every Saturday we would go out in Memphis in the corner of the poverty, and I would stand inside the bus because I was probably 8 or 9. They did not want me just walking around on the streets, but I would pick out clothes for homeless people. They would tell me their size because I would organize it. And so throughout this whole entire week, we'd be getting clothes from donations from people, and then we would get to feed and clothe the homeless. And so we're all people. I think that where we've lost something is that when you look at a homeless person, it's, that's a human. That's somebody's son or daughter, or that's God's creation. I said, so I was normalized that really young, these are people who want to be loved on and need to be loved on.
Well, and the fact you knew they existed.
Yeah.
Because that's the part I'm talking about is before I even got on the fire department, here I'm in my 20s. I had not been to the parts of town where you go into a house, there's no electricity, there's 4 or 5 kids in the living room, there's holes in the floor, it smells of garbage, and you see these little kids that are dirty, and you're thinking to yourself, this looks like something on Feed Your Children on TV, and it's real, and it's 15 miles from my house.
It will completely shake your world. Yeah, no, I had very similar experiences when I did missions in Europe. We went to this apartment complex called Scampia, and there were children running around with no electricity, no water, barely clothed. And I remember vividly, we couldn't bring our phones. It was a very you were stopped in this area and you were walked in by security. That was the only way you were protected. And these kids were running around and playing and laughing, and I was like, I want to find that beauty. I want to be able to laugh and have fun and be in God's peace, even when everything around me is
chaos
and death and broken and stinks and garbage, and people are laying there just barely conscious. And I was like, I think that's why the Bible tells us to have childlike faith. And so that's what I'm saying. I recognized and saw this might not be 15 miles from my home, but this is right now, these 7-year-old little girls sitting there playing in the midst of all the chaos. And I was like, it's just a childlike faith. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It tapped into beyond just sympathy. It was empathy for you, and recognizing that at a young age. Obviously, it started to build tools for yourself that you probably didn't realize at the time it was building until you started getting older. So tell me a little bit about growing up. So when you got to your teenage years, 14, 15, 16, what were you thinking you wanted to do with your life at that point?
I thought I wanted to work in the social work, kind of like what my parents did, but more of the person who placed the children. Because I kind of realized I grew up with all these kids now. I've been there for, over 5 or 6 years at this point. I have conversations. These kids didn't just end up here. They were at other places first. And I heard these broken and heartbreaking stories of these kids who had just been placed and no one cared where they went. And I was like, okay, I want to be a part of that change. I don't want a kid to have to deal with that. Yeah. So I really thought I was going to go into social work. And then I had a friend who did it, who was a little bit older than me also. And then she's like, it's the government. We can't, we don't have the authority of it. Yeah. And so I've always said now when I'm older, I'm going to have a room in my house that's going to be an emergency foster because I know the need for it. I grew up. I'm very blessed to have my parents, but I still grew up with an eye-opening and seeing the need that children have for people who just drop them off. I'm like as if they're a lost dog. I'm like, This is a human being who has feelings, emotions, and thoughts. And I was like, I want to be someone that they can comfort and come to. And so that's what I thought I was going to do.
So what's interesting about that, there's 2 things here that I take away from this is one, the recognition to a problem, can leave a person feeling overwhelmed because maybe you see this big spectrum of stuff that there's all these issues and you want to do something about it, but you're limited because you're only so much. So you didn't see yourself as being rich and famous, I imagine.
No.
But you didn't see yourself as not being able to do something.
I don't think riches compares to being able to do something.
Exactly.
Riches has nothing to do with it. It might make it a little easier, but
True.
I'm not looking for an easy way out if you're going to go up against a foster care system.
Right. So then that's the story here, is that there are probably a lot of people out there that they can recognize that there are these needs. And to themselves, they may say they want to do something, but they don't feel like they can. Or they don't feel like they can do it to the way that they think they should. Ultimately, what it takes is taking action. That once you recognize there's a problem, take action. And it doesn't have to be a big action, it can be a small step. There's a quote that I like to use, which definitely is relevant here. And that is, if we wait till we have everything to help everyone, instead of doing something for someone, we end up doing nothing for no one. You have to take action. And so even as a young person, you're seeing this and you're recognizing, all right, there are these spectrums, these big goals that I would have, and social work, all right? So you think about the professional aspect of it, but then you transition to, maybe it's just too much quagmire to try to dig into on this and not really be able to feel like I'm being effective, which could be accurate. There's nonprofits. There's just taking action yourself. You talk about an emergency room for someone to come to. When you say these kind of things in front of your friends, to people that are your age, what are their reactions to that?
Most of my friends know my background and know my story and know everything that I've gone through and do. So a lot of them are really impressed and their eyes have opened up to it too. In my high school, all of us foster kids and me went to the same school. And so
where'd you go to school?
Tunica Academy.
Okay.
Really, really small, graduated class of 12. I like to joke around and say I was top 10.
Nailed it. I would have been 12. So yeah. I get it.
But, it opened this eye to, Tunica it's not, there's rich farmers and then there's very, very low, poverty people that you talk about. And so it opened this eye to this whole world where these farmers had never seen that, you've always heard of things, like you hear of it, but you've never experienced it firsthand.
Sure.
Well, it opened these doors for these people to be like, oh, this is an actual problem. And so my friends were really amazed and were like, I want to know more about this and how you're going to do this and what's your even plan. And I was like, I am at this time, I'm probably 15, 16. I'm like, let me just pray about it. I'm going to ask the Lord to open the doors that he needs opened and put something on my heart. So that's where missions and, children that just need to be loved have always fallen in together. And so, they're really impressed and want to be a part of the change.
That's what I was going to ask you, is if by action and leadership, because that's a style of leadership, were you influencing your friends to join on and to be a part of stuff?
Yes. I think that God had given them their own mission, but I think also in a way, no. They were more impressed at a 15, 16-year-old talking about this to be like, oh, I can talk about what God wants me to do.
Sure.
Oh, I can talk about the plans that I have for my life and pray about it and see if the Lord is willing to work with those or has his own plans for me. And so I think it more was just to see somebody who is 15, 16 talking about the future instead of, oh, what car am I going to get for my birthday?
Maddie, I do believe there's a lot of deep truth on that, because that's what impressed me about you when we started talking, was that you do expect a certain type of conversation. And look, I started when we started out this whole thing talking about me being a professor. So I literally work with, deal with, coach with, teach with kids I say kids, trust me, when you're as old as I am, it seems like kids when you're in your 20s, from 19 to 26, 27, all the time. And there are patterns, there are things that are common, but what I found so fascinating was the depth of understanding. Because in my opinion, Gen Z, I think the generation is going to be great leaders. I think there are some amazing people in there doing some big things that the world is going to need coming up in the next generation, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I see big things for them because I work with them. I teach them. But it was the depth of understanding you had. That was different. You don't expect that. So even at 15 and 16, it sounds like you were bringing that to the table to your friends. Mm-hmm. So talk about the first missions trip you went on.
The first one I ever went on was, I was 18. I went with my church to Naples, Italy. And when I was fundraising, it was like, you're going to Italy for a missions trip? And I was like, little do you know, Italy, Naples is one of the poorest cities. And so I spent, at the time I had long blonde hair, my blue eyes, everybody in Europe, I was on the side of the street for hours cleaning up trash that was knee deep on us. And we were picking it up and people would pull over and be like, what are you doing here? Like, like I look like the typical tourist. I would have shopping bags in my hand. Like I just look, I'm like, I'm here to clean up and, you know, show love to an area that, you know, the people have stopped caring because the government there didn't care. And so people stopped taking care of the roads, you know, the playgrounds, the stuff like that. And so we came over there and worked with the local church, but also more importantly, we worked with the local government. So the mayor and stuff, I got to meet the mayor of Naples.
Wow.
So I don't know if anybody knows anything about Europe and, you know, the government and Christianity. So over there, completely separate. They do not talk. It's like hot and ice. They do not. So we were trying to show the people of Europe that you don't have to hate or be angry at your mayor or your government. That's not going to fix anything. Mm-hmm. I always say, one wrong doesn't fix another. Like, just because you feel like they've wronged you doesn't mean you go and wrong your own place back. I said, what if you start caring about what you have and we drive on a street. That's a blessing. We're not on gravel. I mean, it's amazing to see and to like put that in perspective. Like there are people who can't drive, who don't have cars.
Right.
I'm like, so if we start taking care of what we have here, and in this area, so like I said, I was on this little side street. It was nothing big, but it was close to a gigantic cemetery. And so we were trying to just clean up areas where people were visiting a lot and show that like somebody did that. And so the mayor was there and he was out there with us cleaning up and showing that, hey, like Christ and the government can agree. They don't have to like, you know, hate each other. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really big thing because people would stop and see the mayor and then see him cleaning up trash and see us Americans with me and my friend were both long blonde hair. It looks like we should be walking down and tourists and sightseeing. And they all stopped and were like, just what? Like, why? Yeah. So we did that and we got to feed. The train station is has the most homeless people there.
Oh, wow.
In all the areas. So we got to, I was stepping over people who were sleeping on the ground because they were lined up. So we got to make warm handmade pasta and bring it to the train station and pray over these people. There was someone who wasn't much older than me at the time. I was 18. He was probably 20. He had been beaten up. It was a really sad situation. And he just came to us crying and we got to sit there and pray over him and ask the Lord just to heal his brokenness. And, you know, we get to give them like a little pamphlet that has, you know, stuff about the Bible, but also resources in it. Like a lot of these people don't know about the resources. And if they do, they usually fill up too fast. Mm-hmm. So we got to give that out and, you know, really just, I think that mission trip touched me more than it might have even touched the people in understanding that, because that set my heart on fire to go back and to do more and be a part of a change, and not just here, but locally.
So that's interesting because how long were you there?
I was there for 10, 12 days, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that is interesting about that for me. As a paramedic, you go into work and you have the intent to help and save lives. It's true. Maybe there's a certain aspect of adrenaline that drives some folks. True enough. I love the adrenaline flow when it would come in. But what you have to start to realize as a paramedic is despite your best efforts, you can't save everybody. And you can give everything you've got. And sometimes it still doesn't come out the way you wished. And if you allow that to discourage you, it's really hard to do the job. So the passion has to be for those that you impact. So that's where I'm going with this next piece is you talked about how that filled you up. You're like, that moment was the inspiration. It lit the flame and then fanned the flame and then poured gasoline on the flame. And you're like, this is it. This is what I want to do. That's understandable. It's almost like the person that runs the first call as a paramedic and they bring that person back and they're like, man, that's awesome. My question to you is, what about the moment when you're giving everything you've got and it doesn't feel like it's reciprocal? The person doesn't care about it, because I can understand how you get inspired. But that's the other part that I want people to hear, is because life's not a bed of roses. We started that out. We started this whole conversation talking about life ain't all about rainbows. What happens whenever there's somebody pouring water on that and they're trying to tell you, look, I don't need your help?
Yeah, I also worked 8 months at a camp that had young people, old people, all of the above. And there was prayer partners, so people that I would walk up and pray over. And like I had a list of names, and these girls I would pray over a week before they even got there. And we would, you know, ask the Lord to protect them on the way here and stuff. And then I would get in person. And little does this know, this lady or this young lady, I had been praying for her for a week. And I get so excited to finally talk to her. And she's like, why are you trying to talk to me? And so I just realized really quickly that I personally am not saving anyone. I'm asking the Lord to save them. And I said, or I'm planting that seed. So even my prayer could be a planted seed. I don't have to see it grow.
That's so good.
I don't have to see this girl, oh my gosh, miraculously loves the Lord. I was like, yes, that is what I intend and pray for every single time. But I'm praying that somebody else back at home will water that seed and she'll remember that. And the encounter of just me just being nice and trying to welcome her and talk to her about things. And so trust me, it is not easy when a group of middle school, high school girls walk up and they really think they're all that in the bag of chips. Yeah. And I'm like the weird camp girl that's like, hey, like, I'm so happy you're here. Let me talk with you if there's anything you need to talk about. Because we only have a short time with these people. Like I might have a week max to try to get these girls to open up to me and talk to me about their deepest, darkest secrets or whatever they're going on in their life, because that's what we're here to do. And I'm here to pray for healing and stuff, and that they feel just in their healing for the Lord to fill their up. And so I don't always get that. I didn't always see it. And sometimes I got completely ignored and walked away from. Yeah. But I'm like, Lord, you love them more than I do. You've put this love. I explain it like this. I would meet people I've never met. And there's this abundance of love that I feel for them. And I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, it's so weird. But then I realized that it's Christ's love for them that's in me. I was like, I might not know you, but I want what is best for you. I'm going to keep praying for you. I'm going to pray that the Lord opens any door for you that you want. And so that made me realize that it's not about seeing the seed grow, but it's about planting the seeds. Because I only have a week. I probably didn't see half of the seeds grow, but I knew that I planted them and that I could keep praying for them and watering them from afar.
See, I'm telling you guys, do I need to even explain anymore why I wanted her coming on the show? That is such an in-depth and amazing perspective toward what it is you're doing and why you're doing it and what drives you. I brought up the negative side of it because I think that's the reality to life, right? You go into something, you have all the right intentions. And I think this is probably true for a lot of folks watching and viewing all across the world right now, is they have a passion or a heart for something. But it only takes one time, one person maybe off-stepping to what you're trying to bring to the table. You're trying to help, or your love is in the right place and you feel dejected. And then that just makes you shy away from it. But that was a great way of explaining. You realize that the moment that you are providing, you don't have to see that growth moment then. You know that you're putting something there that may come full circle a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I use that same approach as far as coaching or teaching. So I'm a real coach. I coach baseball, coach softball. I realize that there's something I may say today that just starts the wheels to turning. And it may be 5 years later. I have it actually happen quite often. A kid that I've coached will come up to me and be like, Coach, remember when you did this, and this? And I'm like, sorry, I really don't. He goes, well, I'm glad that you did that because it made me believe in myself with whatever this thing is. And it changes the course of their life forever. So you're absolutely right, Maddie. What you're doing in that moment, you don't need the self-gratification of them saying, thank you, Maddie, I owe you everything. No, you understand that what you're doing has a higher purpose than you. Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to tell everybody out there. Do something that is bigger than yourself and don't look for the self-reflection. This platform, Coach Camp platform, I say it all the time on my episodes. What's the title? Motivate with Coach Camp. It ain't Coach Camp's about to motivate you. It's us together. It's community. It's us coming together with our thoughts, ideas, perspectives, backgrounds. We make other people stronger and they make us stronger. It is a full circle event.
Yeah, like how you said, what are you working for? That was a big thing at our camp because one day I might be, belaying somebody up a mountain, and the next day I'm going to be in the dumpster throwing trash out of a dumpster because I lived 3,000 feet up. Dump trucks don't come up. If I'm working for man's approval, holy moly, I'll tell you one thing, I would not have been in a dumpster in the pouring rain throwing trash out of a trash can.
Good point.
Would not. I'm doing it for the kingdom. Would I have been on my hands and knees cleaning toilets after every single person left that camp? Nope. I would have not done that for man. So what are you working for? What really motivates you? If this is something that the Lord has put inside of you, you will have that motivation to keep going even when, you're trying to cross the bridge falls, you're going to get off, you're going to swim across. You'll find a way. You might get your toes stepped on, but if it's really worth it in your brain and it's worth it, a few stings isn't going to stop you. If you've ever been stung by a wasp, do you still go outside?
Sure. Absolutely.
Then what's your motivation? You're not going to stop going out. I'm not going to stop pursuing something just because it doesn't make sense or it's not a career or it's not feasible. I'm going to prove that I can do these things with Christ in mind and still manage to have the life that the Lord has planned for me.
Absolutely. And so you said that you did the trip to Naples, and then you also did some youth camps.
Yeah. So
and that's in Tennessee?
Yeah, Eastern Tennessee, it's a small little town called Tallahassee, Tennessee. It's called Eagle Rock Camp. I actually went there with my church for the first 4 years as a camp leader for my church. But then I got reached out and they wanted me to do an internship there. So I moved there January last year at, 19? January, I was 19, yeah. So January, when I was turning 20 in just a month, I moved there by myself. So I knew no one. At 19 years old, I had paid off my own car and everything. So I was like, Mom, Dad, I love y'all. I'm going. This is something the Lord has put on my heart. I'm going to do it. And so my parents were
like... Did they give you any pushback on that?
No, they didn't love it.
Okay.
They love it now. They understand. Yeah. I mean, any parent with a 19-year-old daughter that says, hey, I'm going to move by myself 7.5 hours away. Just imagine that conversation.
Right.
So I moved up there. I lived on camp. It was beautiful. I loved it. I made really, really good friends. I had mentors there, people who really pushed into me. But I learned a big thing that I didn't really get to experience as a kid was being alone. Because I grew up with 11 siblings.
Yeah.
So I never really had that chance to sit still. And so when I was up there, by myself most days, I didn't know anybody. There's not a lot of ways to make friends. You know, you go to church, but if no one really walks up to you, you don't want to look like the crazy one running up to every young person being like, hi.
Hey, you want to be my friend?
Yeah. I tried. It didn't work for me. So I got to learn how to sit in his presence and be still. And I think that was why God wanted me to go up there and wanted me to go and be a part of that, because I sat upstairs and I learned to be okay just with me.
How long were you there?
8 months.
8 months, yeah. That's a good while.
January to August, I think, something like that. But I learned to be okay in his presence and his presence only, because having 11 siblings, you never have a dull moment. And so I learned how to be in peace. I never learned that. Like, I always thought, like, when I lived here and everybody was out doing stuff, I needed to be out doing it too. Like, I needed to go find my friends. We needed to be doing something every day because that was what my life was. And so moving where I had no friends, I learned how to sit upstairs in my room with a cat, just sitting there and just being in the Word and being fed. And I can't tell you how many times it was just, now I love it. It's so funny because I'm very outgoing, very, very, like, love to talk to people, love to do all of that. But now I've learned to love the peace too. I used to not be good at peace. I didn't feel comfort in peace. I felt like I was alone and I was drowning and but the Lord taught me how to lean on Him in that alone time and be with Him. And that was just, I credit that forever.
Let me ask you about this. So whenever this is one of the things that I talk about often too on a lot of my shows, is the need for reflection. A person has, maybe they've experienced a lot of things, but they don't take time to think about it. So it's really hard to know what those lessons were that you're supposed to be getting along the way. So would you say, or if so, how much of that time that you're saying that you had for the first time really in your life to kind of hit the pause button, did it help you have the perspective that you have today, reflecting on where you've come from, what you've been through, and why it was important?
I think a really big thing with where I'd come from and what I'd been through is I always littled it. I didn't really feel like I grew up with kids who had no parents, people who abandoned them and left them. And then I grew up after that with, all of these people who had been hurt and broken. And I'm like, I have a loving mother and father. I have a brother. I have a car. I've never wondered where my next meal came from. I was like, I always was belittling the things that I felt like because I was comparing them to other people's problems. And so when I finally got up there and I was sitting with my mentor, his name's Bogaluli, I was talking to him and I was like, or one of my mentors, I kind of broke my life down in a nutshell. And he was like, dang, girl, and you're 20, you're 19 at the time. I was like, I had never heard anyone be like, that's a lot, because I had been so stuck in the fact that, not saying that I can't be grateful for the life that I have. I'm very grateful. The Lord has blessed me. I'm a miracle baby. I shouldn't even be alive. The Lord has pushed and poured into me my whole life. But I've stopped and I started just reflecting on, other people's problems, not my own. I didn't see them as problems. I was like, this problem is much bigger. It was almost like a tiny flame and a big flame. I'm like, let me go fix the big flame and just ignore mine. So being up there and doing that, I really got to sit back and be like, wow, Maddie, like, you've had a life. Like, it's okay that I feel like I've had a life. Like, I just was this grand, like, opening eye moment of being like, wow, like I really have experienced a lot to be 21. Like my life, you know what? It's not been easy. And I'm okay with that. I would take this life 1,000 times over than the life that was just everything was handed to me, because I've learned so much. Like you said, I've grown perspective. I understand. I have wisdom beyond my age.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that did make me realize like, oh, wow. You know, maybe I have gone through a lot.
Yeah, it's important for us to take that pause. Myself, how I reflect is I run. So people that know me, I'm an overweight, elderly person now that runs. That's what I do. I run. So I will go run 2 miles or 5 miles or 10 miles. And during that time, I never listen to music usually. Very rarely would I ever listen to music. I run and I reflect and I think. And all I want to hear is my feet hitting the pavement. Or the treadmill, because if it's bad weather, I'm not running in the bad weather if I don't have to. But that's a part of that moment of quiet and peace that you're talking about you needed and you never really had before. Because I think if we don't have those moments, we don't have that moment of just shutting down everything else, it's really easy to miss stuff we're supposed to grab along the way that's going to help build you. But then also when it's helping build you and you share that with other people, it's helping build them, which is something that we've been talking about this entire conversation, is about how you've been investing in others. I want to highlight something too. You said something that actually rung a bell. I can remember once I had a series of things going on, and it's real easy to get caught up in those moments. And you talk about it, and all of a sudden you realize you're vocalizing your issues out loud, and people hear it. And I caught myself, I'll say the word complaining out loud to a lady I work with. And she had just lost her mom to cancer. Her child had cancer. She had just lost her apartment. These are all real things. It's like in a short span of time. And I stopped myself and I apologized. Now, what she said next was so important. See, she didn't realize sometimes you're going through something and you need to know that you're about to be a source of strength. She didn't know she was about to be a source of strength to me. I apologized and she said, no, you don't have to apologize. I said, I know, but I'm complaining about this stuff and you've gone. She goes, life's not a competition. It's a journey. Life is not a competition. You don't have to compare yourself to me. And that's what you just said. You don't have to compare your struggles or anything to someone else, but there's a gift. There's a gift there, and you need to share that with other people, though, because when you come through that storm, you've been given something that it wastes if you don't tell people.
Exactly.
So you sharing that with others is really important.
Comparison is the thief of joy. I don't want to compare my life to you. I have so much joy beyond. And people are like, a lot of people have thought I'm fake because of the joy that I have. And I'm like, do you think that I wake up every morning just so happy to be awake? I was like, no. But do you know what I do? I choose joy.
Good point.
So what morning are you waking up and just being like, my life sucks, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that? What if you're the only smile or the only glimpse of the Bible someone sees today? What if you're the only Christ love that someone sees? What if somebody else is having, that's what I think of. I'm like, I treat everyone as if this is the only chance that they will ever see the word. So I'm going to show you Christ's love as much as I can. And it might sound fake and it might sound annoying, but there's a fire burnt inside of me for the love of Christ. And I want everyone to know this love and this feeling that no matter what, I have a Father upstairs who is taking care of me. No matter how hard life might seem, I am in his plan. He's leading me, guiding me, directing me through every decision that I make. And so that's where I'm saying joy, it can be for all. You have to wake up and choose it, though.
You absolutely do. And for you to be able to understand at such a young age that, when you have faith, it doesn't mean that you're going to have an easy path.
No.
What it does give you is the strength to get through those difficult times. Now, I want to go back to this because I know how I see things. I want to get it from your perspective. So for kids your age, I say kids, please forgive me. I know you're a grown-up. I know you're an adult. You have to understand the perspective. For people your age, the Gen Z world, there are a lot of distractions that are in the world now that I didn't face as my generation came up. That being social media, tons of news outlets, fake and real, doesn't matter what you look at. There's a lot of things pull in the negative direction. Plus something else that is a common thing throughout all of history. People gravitate towards drama. People gravitate towards the negativity. Clearly, you're exposed to this. There's no way to get around it unless you live under a rock. As a person your age, how do you put out all of those fires that are going on around you? And there could be things that are legitimate, like real concerns. How does a person your age say to themselves, you know what, I see the world's on fire in certain areas, but I'm going to be that light? How do you make that choice?
I realized really, really quickly that, yes, I want to make a difference in this world, but it's going to take more than me. I said, and me alone can't do it. Christ with me can. So I give all my problems up to the Lord. I have 1,000 things that I can stress about. All stress does is age me sooner than I want to age. Lord, take my stress. Lord, take my anxiety. Lord, help me through these problems. I alone am not smart enough, strong enough at all to do it. Lord, every prayer, I'm just like, I pray for, things that in the world, I pray for Israel. I pray for things in this world that are crumbling. Lord, my power alone can't do it. Lord, I need you. I need a community of people who understand that. So yes, there's 1,000 fires going on, but I know that I am in my little bubble of ocean where the Lord is going to protect me and protect my family and the people that I love and care for. And it's that waking up every day being like, yeah, there's a fire right there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put on my fireproof vest and I'm going to walk through it and tell the Lord that it has no power over me. I think it's a big day waking up every day and declaring that the enemy has no power over you. No, not your future, not your kids, not any generation in your family. And declaring that, because I would walk around at Eagle Rock and I would laugh a little and I'd be walking past Bo's office and he was like, why are you laughing? And I'm like, can you imagine fighting a battle you've already lost? That's what the enemy does. When you finally realize that all of these things that are happening in this world, it's in this world. This isn't my home. Yes, I want to take care of it, but the enemy's already lost this battle. There's nothing he can do. It was won at the cross. Yeah. And so I have that perspective of being like, you know what? It might suck today, but I've already won tomorrow.
Yeah. I think that is so important to understand that the thing that you're dealing with in that moment is temporary and that tomorrow will come. And to be honest with you, I mean, I think a lot of times your choice as to how you approach the problem either amplifies or takes away the problem. A person that focuses on an issue, let's just use something arbitrary. So you have your elbow's hurting for whatever reason, and you think about your elbow hurting, and you think about how much it sucks for that to hurt, it's going to hurt more. Sometimes you do need to have a positive mindset about how is tomorrow going to be better? How is this moment going to be better? And when you start to find those things, you're right. You see the big picture and the battle's already been won.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you have to worry about.
And I'm not telling my generation to ignore everything. I'm not saying that. I don't want anyone to think that. But what I'm saying is look at it in a grain of salt. All right. This right now, I learned this when I worked with middle schoolers. They were talking about all of these problems. And I'm just like this. I'm just like, Lord, give me the will to talk to these middle schoolers about their middle school problems. And so I just realized I was like, that is their world right now.
Yeah.
I said, what are the problems right now? Am I making that my world? Am I making that what my life orbits, or am I making Christ what my life orbits? And those problems seem to get a lot smaller when you redirect your attention to Christ. Because let's be for real. We've all had a bad day. We've all had our best friend talk about us. We've all had something happen that might just have really sucked. And, I lost a best friend senior year. Like, that was not easy. Waking up every day, making the same drive we made together to school, that was not easy. I could have definitely chosen to take down a really dark path and really struggled. But I said, Lord, you've called me to higher. I'm going to be better. Lord, I pray that you take my pain. And I understood that why would yes, I'm mourning, but she's in a better place. Like, she's in a peace. She's an internal peace. That's all I can wish for anyone. And so I don't want anyone to think that we're ignoring our problems, but I'm saying, why don't we take a step back, refocus our compass or whatever guides our life. If it's that problem in that moment, of course, it's going to seem huge.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, you know what, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing, that's a good day.
Yeah. When you see something that takes place you don't like, it's about what you do next. And there are a lot of ways that you could take that, but you're right. You're not dismissing the issue.
The issue is real. It's okay to feel those issues.
You have to find that path forward. And that's what you're talking about, which I'm picking up, obviously. So let's talk about this real fast. So you work at Dunkin' Donuts now, and you are working towards doing some more mission work.
Yes.
So where do you see Maddie in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
In the next year, I see Maddie continuing to work. I wake up every morning super early, go to work, and then, I save as much as I can. I put money into missions. I go again in November, back to Europe, back to Naples to just show the love of Christ there. I'm really excited for that. So I've just been working to pay that off. And maybe 2 years, I see myself in real estate. 3 years, hopefully married. Everyone laughs at me and they're like, what do you want to be when you're old? I'm like, a wife. I know that's so crazy. That's so not like my generation, but I want to be a wife. I'm like, I will do the dishes. I guess that's the 10 siblings in me. But, I just see myself at peace. I mean, I know that's crazy. I'm going to have storms. I know I am, but I know that I have God on my side, and so there's no storm that can beat that.
And you said you had a great guy in your corner.
Yeah, I do.
For 5 years. Go ahead, you plug your boyfriend in. It's fine, too.
My boyfriend's name is James. We met at Coffee Central where I worked 5 years ago. We were friends for a really long time. He now is a personal trainer. He owns his own business, which is really nice. He is a phenomenal chef. So he makes meals based off of your micros and macros. I don't really know the whole gym talk thing.
I'm going to take your word on that one.
I'm like, I don't know the whole gym talk thing, but he just makes meals based off of what your workout is looking for, or he'll just cook for you. And so it's really, really cool. So he's doing great things. I'm really excited for what God has in his life. He's a God-fearing husband and man. I'm so excited, to see where that goes, and just keep praying over it is what I do.
So Maddie's going to be one day maybe in real estate.
Maybe in real estate.
Definitely married. How many kids?
Oh, kids. That's what's so funny is after, having 10 siblings for so long, I'm like, I'll have kids when I'm 30. It's nice to have a life without kids all around. But, probably 2, the average. I want to be fruitful. I want to multiply, as the Lord says. I want to raise up kids who have the same mindset as me, who understands, yes, things in this world are going to get hard. But I mean, you have a God on your side who's already won it. And so that's really important to me. But, all in what the Lord says, that's where I'm at. I'm just like, Lord, lead me. Because when I tried to lead myself, I actually had that calling to Eagle Rock, that camp. But when I was 16, I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here.
Wow.
And I ignored it till I was 19. And I think it is so funny because if I would have gone when I did, and I would have summer staffed 2 months every year. So I would have gone 16, 17, 18, 19. So that would have been 2, 4, 6. And then I actually ended up going, and I was there for 8 months. And that's how I feel like as long as the Lord wanted me there, which was really cool. It's so cool to see full circle things,
Yeah.
And the Lord just working. He has worked through my life in more ways than I can even. Like I said, I'm a miracle baby. I wasn't supposed to live past a week. Proved the doctors wrong.
So wow.
Yeah, I had water on my brain, and I grew up with a family of prayer, and they prayed that water would be gone. And
wow.
It was. I'm completely healed. And so,
So you think you'll ever do foster?
Yeah, it's in my works. I would really I have a heart for those kids. And all in what the Lord wheelhouses and allows, whatever job I end up in. I want to be able to have I've seen the situations where it's like, hey, if we can't find an emergency foster house for these kids right now, Child Protective Services is going to take them. And I'm like, I will do whatever it takes to keep those kids out of that, because it is a solution. It is, for a problem. I wouldn't go to say it's the best solution, but it is a solution. It's better than nothing. It's better than those kids having nowhere and living on the streets. I 100% understand that. And so, I'm to the point where I'm like, I know I want to have a room. Me and James have even talked about that down the road. I'm like, this is an important part of my life.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you now so I don't sign you up for something 10 years down the road. But yeah, so foster, I will definitely probably have foster kids or, adopt.
Outstanding. I can't wait to see what you grow into, what my guest last week grows into, and we have a gentleman coming in next week after this episode. And I'm always encouraged by the next generation. I think a lot of it has to do, though, with me personally investing in that generation and the younger generation as a coach. You want to see the one before you coming to be better. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people can have the opposite perspective depending on what they've gone through, what they've done. I could understand my great-grandparents and my grandparents, World War II vets, and they're like, this group ain't got a chance coming up. Well, you guys were really tough. I get that part. Yeah. But,
it's the circumstances they had to be in, though.
It's the circumstances they had, right?
I don't have to fight for a war right now, so I'm going to enjoy not having to.
It was definitely a different world, for sure.
And I have the most respect for them.
Of course. And my message to everyone, though, is to not get so caught up in what we see on social media and stuff. Realize there are some really amazing young people coming up that's going to have a huge impact on this earth, and they're going to leave a legacy behind. Planting seeds is what it's all about for that next generation coming up to make this place a little better each and every time. So last little part that I want to mention, just a fun thing. My daughter is Mattie, Mattie. You're Maddie, Maddie. And her dad and I played baseball together. We grew up together, found that out, and that's really awesome. So
yeah, no, it's a small world. And that's the thing is, like, who knew when you were playing little ball or little T baseball, whatever it is, that you would be sitting with his future daughter talking about the impact that the future kids and generations are going to have.
There's no way I would have guessed that one.
A full God moment. That's what I'm saying.
It's pretty amazing for sure. So what would you leave my people with as we wrap up here today? That, everything that you're dealing with right now, it might seem like the biggest thing in this world. And it probably, for some of you, is. But there's always a rainbow at the end of every storm. And if you keep focusing on and praying on and just asking the Lord to give you peace in these situations, He will. He loves you. I mean, He knows every head on your hair. He sent His only Son to die for you. I mean, if you really take a step back and think about that, like I asked, but I'm like, would you send me to a cross? Could you do that? I'm just like, it's so hard. And so I think that if you just take every day as a day and that you're going to wake up the next morning and you can get through it all. Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, if you take a step back and just look at the day you just had and you completed all that, you did that, you can do it again. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And do it even better. Paying attention as you go along the way. Maddie, thank you so much for coming down to the studio. It
was so fun.
Basically, I got news for you. You're going to have a great impact. I can't wait, like I said, to hear about all the exciting things you're going to do in your life. I'll keep up with you because it'll be easy. I know your dad. Well, thank you again. Hey, to my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. I love y'all, man. Look, continue to check it out. Go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com. Subscribe to my YouTube. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's my